before we can get data from Salesforce or any resource from Salesforce, we need to generate access token. And one of the ways to generate access tokens is username password flow. There are many different OAuth flows, and username password flow is one of the basic ways of generating access token. So this is how it basically works. So there is a user, there is a client application that you are using. It may be a mobile app, it may be a browser, a web app, so on. Then Salesforce has an authorization server, and there is also a resource server from Salesforce. Resource server is where the data is stored. So everything is stored in resource server. Authorization server takes care of both authentication and authorization. So this is how the flow will be. So the user comes to the app. It may be a mobile app or web app. They basically want to access some data from Salesforce. So first thing is they will enter username and password. Then this app will make a request to authorization server with username and password. To pass whatever username and password is entered by the user, it is passed to the authorization server. Then authorization server will validate username and password. It will not just return access token. It will first validate whether this username and password is valid. Then it will return an access token. Okay. So now that we have an access token, we can request for data. For example, you want to get account data, right? So you request for accounts and you need to pass access token along with your request. So once this access token is sent, you are actually requesting resource server to get the data. But what resource server does is it asks authorization server whether the access token that is passed, is it valid or not. Now authorization server will validate that access token because authorization server is the one which issued the access token, right? So it will validate this access token. If everything is good, access token is valid, then it will say it's good, and then the resource server will respond with data, right? So this is how the flow works in username password flow. And once you generate access token, rest of the flow will work the same. How you generate access token differs from flow to flow, right? So we'll not get into other flows today, but this is the basic idea behind how authentication and authorization happens and how access token is generated. And once we have access token, we can perform certain actions within Salesforce. Okay. Anybody having any questions on this flow?
No, sir.
Okay. So before we can start doing integration, we need to make certain setup. First thing is you need to enable username password flow. So for that, you go and search here for in setup, search for OAuth and OpenID Connect settings. And there you have to go and enable something called allow OAuth username password flow. If you don't enable it, you will not be able to use username password flow. This is the first step you have to do. Then we discussed like we need to create a connected app. Whenever you want to connect with Salesforce, right? Any third-party system wants to connect with Salesforce, it needs to create a connected app, right? So go to apps here. Scroll down to this connected app section and create a new connected app. I have already created one. I'll just show you what I have done. So I have just given some name, what is the contact email, and what is the callback URL. Callback URL changes from system to system. Here I'm just using my callback URL. And then here we can define what the user can do, right? This is the scope. I have given full access, but generally you have to decide like what you want to do. Suppose you want to only access Chatter API, then you will not give full access. You will only give access to the Chatter API, right? And based on what you want to do, right? Suppose you want to get some data cloud APIs, right? So you want to access only to data cloud API, then you will enable only that. But for demo sake, I am enabling giving full access. My whatever access token I'll generate, it will have access to do anything within Salesforce, right? So that's what I'm saying. And then that's it. So there are a few other setup you may want to do based on whichever flow you are using, right? So once you do this, right, what it does is it generates something called client ID and client secret. So here, if you see there is something called consumer key and consumer secret. So you click on manage consumer details and it asks for verification code. So once you enter verification code, this is what you will see. You will see consumer key and consumer secret. So these are very important. You keep them secure, right? You should not lose them. You should not give it to anybody, especially consumer secret. It has to be kept very secure. In fact, I'll be deleting this after this class, right? So it has to be kept very, very secure. So once we have done this, we are ready to connect with Salesforce, right? So it's better to test these things before we actually integrate with another system. Like before we start integrating two systems, we need to test these APIs, the flow of generating access token and then actually getting data from Salesforce, right? So there is one tool called Postman, which is really, really helpful with testing the APIs, right? Everybody has used Postman before?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's good. So basically, using Postman, you can test all your APIs. So the first API that we are going to test is the access token, because first thing we need to do is get access token, right? And we are using username password flow. So we are going to make a post call to this endpoint. So this is the token endpoint of Salesforce. You are going to make request to this, and this is your body. So if you look at this body, this has many things, right? First, it has grant type, and we are saying password. So this is the grant type, and grant type differs from flow to flow. So for username password flow, grant type is password. Then you need to pass client ID that you have generated when you created your connected app. Then you need to add client secret. Again, this is generated from your connected app. Then you need to pass username and then password. And password should also include security token, right? Which is generated when you create a new password, or you can generate a new security token anytime you want. So password should include your password plus security token, right? And then in header, you have to pass content type as application / xww form and URL encoded, so on, right? So once you have done this, click on send. Now it is asking Salesforce authorization server to authenticate and return access token. And you can see it has returned some data, right? So it has returned access token, instance URL, other things, right? So when it was issued, so on. So from here, you take this access token and you kind of cache it. So it basically needs to be stored temporarily so that you can make a request to Salesforce. So I'll take this access token now. Suppose, or before that, anybody having any questions so far? Okay. So now let's say I want to query data, right? So for querying data, I'm going to make a GET request to this endpoint. So how am I getting this endpoint is whenever we made this request to get token, it returned instance URL, right? So this is basically our base URL to which we will be making requests. So when I am making a request to query data, I'm passing that base URL, and then rest of it is standard /services data and version 60. And then I'm passing just a SOQL query, right? Select ID, name, account number, billing address from account, right? And here in header, I have to pass authorization, and I'll be saying bearer space, whatever is the token that we have generated, right? So this is the token we generated. I paste it and I will make a request. So now it is requesting Salesforce server to get data. So when this happened, there is a validation process that happens internally within Salesforce. This access token will be passed to authorization server, and authorization server will validate it. And only if this is valid, it will return the data, right? Suppose let's say this is not valid, right? I'll delete something from here and I'll make a request. See, can you see it says invalid session ID? So which is basically invalid access token, right? So only if the access token is valid, you will get the data, right? So it is returning data in the form of JSON, right? For example, here it returned some 15 records, and each of these is a one record, right? So you can see it returned ID, name, account number, billing city, billing state, so on, right? So this is how you get data from Salesforce. Okay. So now let's say you want to create an account. So you will be making which method you will call for create account?
Post method.
Yes.
Post
So to create, we will call post method. Again, the base URL is same, and we are requesting from S object, which is account, right? And we need to pass again authorization, the bearer token, which is our access token. And then you have to say create account needs something, right? What is the account name? What is the account number? So on, right? So let's make this call. So this created an account and it returned an account ID, right? So this is the account that got created. Okay. So if it failed, then it would return a different code here. But 201 means it is successful, right? Now, let's say we want to update an account. So to update, we will be using patch request, right? So go to patch. So let me update this account only. The account that we created is this. I want to update this account. So I can go here. Again, the base URL is same. And I'm saying yes, object account and update this particular account, right? We need to pass the account ID. And again, we need to pass access token. So bearer access token. And then what do we want to update, right? I want to update phone number. I can include more fields, right? So let's send, and update happened. Yeah, so there is only headers that is written. So there is no response in this. So it just return the header, right? But it is successful, right? And then you can also delete an account. So let's say I don't have a delete here. Yeah, we'll use custom REST later. Okay, so I'll show the delete flow after some time. But you can use similarly, you can use a delete method. Let me try. So I'll just change it to delete. and then send. Yeah, I think the account is deleted now, right? In fact, let's go back and query accounts, send. So there are only 15, right? So let's create one more time, send. So one account is created. Let's query data. Now it should return 16, right? So it returns 16. Then I'll go and delete it. So in patch, I'm saying delete this, not this. So there's no body needed, only ID needs to be passed. So the ID that we need to pass is this. Let's first do update patch. I'm going to update phone. So to update, we have to pass the ID. And so the update is successful. Now, if you query again, there are 16 records, and then I can go back and delete this record if I want to. So if I change the method to delete and send, the data is deleted. Let's go back and query data, send. So there are 15 records. So basically, we tested all methods. So we tested get request, then post, patch, and delete. Okay. Anybody having any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. So now that we have tested our APIs, let's actually build an application, right? So there is no fun in doing all this in Postman, right? You can see the data, but what is the point? So let's actually build an application. So the application that we are building today is a simple NextJS application. It's a React.js framework, right? NextJS is a React.js framework. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to access Salesforce data from this NextJS application. And if you see, I'm running this locally here. It's running on localhost 3000, and I'm trying to access data from Salesforce. So you can see like it's loading data, and all of this data is coming from Salesforce. And if you go to accounts here, you can see like there are 15 accounts here, right? And this is the data that we are seeing in my Next.js application. Suppose I want to create an account, right? So let's create an account. Wait a second, I have to pass name details here. I have not handled all the errors because this is just a demo app. Let's say I want to create a sample account, phone number, and website. Create. See, it created one account here. And if I go to Salesforce now and refresh, it added this sample account, right? There are 16 accounts now. It added this sample account. 111 is the phone number, right? Now, let's say I want to update the phone number. It says 111 here. So I'm going to update it to, let's say, 33333. So it makes another call to Salesforce and go back here for the sample account. Let's see, reload it. So sample account, the phone number is updated to 333, right? Similarly, if I want to delete this account, I'll just make a delete call, right? I'll say delete. So the account is deleted. Let's go back and let's try to open the sample account. This record is deleted, right? And we can see like there are only 15 accounts now. Okay. So how is this working? So basically, all that I am doing is what I did in this Postman. First thing I'm doing is the get request, right? I'm querying the data. So when I query the data, it returns data in the form of JSON. But before I can query the data, I need to authenticate, right? I need to call this token URL, token endpoint, and generate access token. So that's the first step I'm doing. Then I'm querying the data and displaying it as a table. So I'm querying data, displaying as a table, and then I can update the data. I can create data. So when I say create data, it's calling that post request. It's making a post request to Salesforce. And when I update data, right? Suppose I update phone number. So this is making a patch request. And when I delete, it's making a delete request, right? So let's actually see the code for this, right? Yeah. So what we are doing, whenever I open this application, I'm going to /accounts, right? So this is my page. So I have created one page under pages. I have created one page called accounts.js, right? So what this is doing on load, I'm running fetch accounts. So the fetch accounts is making call to API/accounts. So in APIs, I have created one index.js file. So this request is going to this file, okay, index.js file. So inside index.js file, what I am doing, I'm first generating access token, right? I'm calling authenticate method, and authenticate method is coming from Salesforce, right? So Salesforce file. So this is the file. So this is the file which is making call to Salesforce token endpoint, and you can see it here, right? So I'm making request to token endpoint, and base URL I have stored as environment variable here. I've created one file called environment variable. Here I'm storing all the secrets and all the details: client ID, client secret, username, password, login URL. So this is the end base URL, and to this base URL I'm saying I have added this token endpoint, and I'm making request with grant type equal to password, client ID, client secret, username, and password. So when this method is called, it generates access token and instance URL. In fact, it has more details like what we get here, right? It gives me all this access token, instance URL ID, token ID, everything. So from this, I'm extracting access token and instance URL and then returning, right? So we started from this account.js. So whenever get request is done, this calls this file, and this file is first generating access token and instance URL. And then we are going to make get request to this query endpoint, right? So one thing to note here is the header. So inside header, we are passing authorization, bearer, access token. So this is exactly similar to, let me just drag them side by side. Yeah. So this is similar to making a query data, right? So when I am querying data, I need to pass header, authorization, bearer, and the access token, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm making a request to this get endpoint, and I'm passing authorization, the token, right? So if this request is successful, it will get the data and return the records, right? So all that this method is doing is whenever we make a get request, it makes a call to this endpoint, passes access token, and gets the data and returns it. So once the data is returned, we are storing the data in this accounts variable and displaying it, right? So I'm basically displaying accounts here in the form of a table, right? So mapping through the accounts, and just like what we do in LWC, right? I'm just displaying the data, and this is what we are seeing, right? Anybody having any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. So now let's understand about create, right? So whenever we want to create data, we want to pass data, right? Name, phone number, website, and we click on this button. So when that happens, so there is a button, just 1 second. Yeah. Yeah. So there is create account button. I'm calling this handle create method. So what handle create method does, it again calls this API accounts, and we are passing this data, name, phone number, website, right? And then, so whatever data is there in these fields, right? So there are 3 fields here: name, phone number, website. I'm taking the data from that and passing to this method, which is it will call this, and we are making a post request because that's what we are doing here, right? So just a second. So we are making a post request to API/accounts, which is this file. And when we get a post request, so it is basically first extracting name, phone, and website from my request, and then making call to this endpoint, post request to this endpoint where s_object/account. So it is saying create an account with this detail: name, phone number, and website. So this is basically going to create a JSON similar to this, right? Whenever we are making create account, we are passing a JSON, right? Key value pair. So this is the field name, and this is the value, field name and value. So that's what we are doing here. So this will create a JSON, and again we have to pass in header authorization and bearer token, right? So once this is done, if it is successful, it will return an account ID, right? So then again we are making fetch accounts. So which is basically get. If we created a new account, we want to get it and display here, right? So we want to again display here when we create an account. So let's create one account, sample account 2, 4, create account. So account is created and sample account is added here. And if you look at it, look at Salesforce now. So this is the sample account that got created, right? So is this create flow clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let's look at the update one, right? So on every row, in fact, every column, right? Every input field, we have put this handle update, right? So whenever something changes in this field, it is going to make a request to Salesforce, right? So handle update. So what it is doing, it is taking the account ID, because to update an account, you need ID, right? And the updated data it will take, and it is making a patch request, right? To account/ID, right? So account/ID in this case is in Next.js, this is how it is stored, right? This is the file it is calling. And this file calls, so basically, if we are making an update, so this will call this method patch request, right? So before it can make the request, again we are generating access token and instance URL calling by making call to this authenticate method. Generally, we should not do this every time. I'm doing this for just for the sake of demo. But generally, what we do, we generate this token once and store it for some time, right? And we keep reusing it until it is valid. But for sake of demo, I'm generating this access token again and again. So I generated access token. So it's making a patch request. And then it is making request to this endpoint, right? Update endpoint of Salesforce. And we are passing account ID along with data. And we again need to pass the bearer token or the access token. So when this does, it goes and updates the data and that's it. So update does not return anything. It just goes and updates the data. If it fails, it will throw error. If it is successful, there is nothing that is returned. Okay. So that is what is happening here. So let's go back and I want to update this sample account. 55555. So this makes a request to Salesforce. And if I go back to Salesforce and reload it, so sample account 2 phone number is updated, right? So is this clear, the update method?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the fourth method, right? So which is delete. So basically, if I go here and I want to delete this account, so I click on this delete button and the account is deleted, and it should also be deleted from Salesforce, right? So this is deleted. So let's see what is happening here. It's again similar to update, right? So go to accounts.js. So on every row, we have added a button called delete button, right? And it calls handle delete and it is passing account ID. Which account ID do I want to delete? So handle delete will be called. So this is my handle delete, and this is making call to the same file, which is this id.js. And this is a delete call, right? So whenever this method is called, it is making a delete request to Salesforce. Again, this is it will take the instance URL and this is the endpoint. And we need to pass account ID. And then we have to pass the authorization, which is the access token, right? So this is how it will work. So it's like whenever we go here, we are making a delete request to this endpoint. We need to pass account ID and we need to pass the header, right? So we don't need body for delete. So here we don't need body. We just make a delete request with header and the ID. Okay. Yeah. So anybody having any questions on any of these, right? Get, post, patch, and delete. So it is all very simple, right? One thing is you need to generate access token. So there are different ways of generating access token. We are using username password flow. Once you generate access token, you are going to make a request to one of the endpoints based on what you want to do. If you want to query data, you make request to the query endpoint, which is the get request. If you want to create data, then you will make a post request. For post request, you need to pass the token as well as you need to pass the data, right? So this is the data you want to create. Similarly, if you want to update data, you make a patch request. You need to pass authorization token. Also, you need to pass data, right? If you want to update, what data are you going to update? So something like phone you want to update, right? You can update multiple fields. And you want to probably update account number, right? So on. And then if you want to delete, you don't need a body. You just need to pass account ID here and the authorization token. Any questions, any doubts?
So generally, like after some time, it gets log out or not. Like how does that work at that time?
Yeah. So the token that we generate, right? So it is valid for some time. So you can also set how long it is valid in Salesforce. Generally, it's valid for 2 hours, right? So this is issued at this time and it is valid for 2 hours. So as long as it is valid, we can keep using that token. Once it is expired, you will have to again generate a new token, making call to this endpoint. So there is one flow called refresh token flow we talked about. In that case, you don't have to do you don't have to pass username, password, all of those things. You can use that refresh token to get a new access token every time the token is expired, right? So then the system will not log out. The refresh token is stored, and that refresh token will be exchanged for an access token. But it is important that you generate access token and that access token is valid. If the access token is not valid, you will not be able to do any of this. Get, update, nothing you can do, create.
Okay, sir. Like, sir, when we pass the URL, this header will be stored within the like browser memory. This token will be where it will be
No, it
stored in
depends
the.
on how we are doing it. So in this case, in this Next.js application, I'm passing it along with the request. I'm not storing in browser anything. Right?
Okay.
I'm directly generating it and passing it. But if you want to store it, you can store it in your cookies. You can store it in some other memory. So there are many ways to store the data. So you can store it in your browser also.
Okay.
And if you're building a mobile application, then you will be storing in your mobile data.
Okay.
Yeah, you will store it somewhere. And generally, you will have to store it in a secure way so that nobody gets access to this token. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So far, if you look at it, we didn't write any code in Salesforce, right? All that we did is we enabled username password flow and we created a connected app and we were able to perform all these actions. So how we are able to do is Salesforce provides standard REST APIs, right? So we are just using the REST APIs provided by Salesforce. We don't have to write any code if you want to use standard APIs, but there are some limitations with standard APIs. If you want to perform some complex operation, right? Say in one request, I want to get the account data as well as all the opportunities and all the contacts, anything like that, right? So that is not possible with the standard REST API. So if you want to do that, then you will have to make multiple calls to Salesforce, which is not good, right? Making multiple API calls. So in those kind of situations, you can actually build your own REST API endpoints, right? So now let's understand how to build that. Okay. So let's go to Salesforce. So here I have created one class. Okay. So let me reload it. So if you want to create your own endpoint, you have to write one Apex class and make sure that your Apex class is marked as global, right? And the methods also should be global. And we are using something called REST resource annotation, and you are giving URL mapping. So this is your endpoint. Okay. So you're saying accounts data is my endpoint. And this endpoint will give access to what? It will give me access to get method. It will give me access to post method, delete method, so on, right? So in get method, I can write anything I want, right? So here, if you see, I'm doing multiple things. So I want to get accounts data and I'll be passing an account ID, right? Within my request, I'll pass account ID. For this account ID, get me account details. Along with that, get me contact details and get me opportunity details in one request, right? So I don't want to make separate requests for contact, separate request for opportunity. I'll make one request and I'll pass account ID and it has to return me account details, all the contacts related to that account and all opportunities related to that account. So to do that, we have to create one Apex class, which is quite simple. Create one Apex class, mark it as @REST resource and provide a URL mapping. And then you create methods. So here I have created multiple methods, right? There are 3 methods I have created. One method I have marked as @get. So this method will be automatically invoked whenever we make a get request to this endpoint, right? Similarly, whenever I make a post request, this method will be called. So this post method is not doing much. It is just taking the data and creating account and then finally return account ID, right? Similarly, I want to delete data. I can actually do many things inside this. Here I am just doing simple delete, but I can perform other logic. Like before deleting, I want to validate something. All of those can be done here, right? So whenever I make a delete request to this endpoint, this method will be called. Okay. So once you have returned this, so you need to test it. So again, go to Postman. And I have created here custom get. So custom get. Yeah. So the endpoint would be almost similar. The base URL is same. Base URL is not changing. Then services / you have to say Apex REST, right? And then account data. Account data is this URL mapping that we have provided, right? So whatever is the URL mapping, so that you will include here. And I'm saying get data for this account ID because we need account ID to get data, right? You can see it is extracting account ID from request URL. So let's make a request. And you can see it failed, right? It failed because I did not update the token. This is my old token, right? This is not valid anymore. So let's pass the new token. Making custom request to this, get me the details, sent. See, it returned data in the form of JSON, and what it returned? It returned opportunities, a list of opportunities. It returned a list of contacts and it returned account details. So account is edge communication, industry is this, and then it has how many contacts? So there is 1 contact, 2 contacts. There are 3 contacts under this account, right? And then this also returned a list of opportunities. So 1 opportunity, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 opportunities. and 3 contacts, right? So you can see it in Salesforce. So the account that we are requesting is this edge communication. It has 3 contacts and 4 opportunities. So this is the data it is returning, right? So I was able to get all of this data in a single call, right? I didn't have to make multiple calls because I have created a custom endpoint. So is this making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
So
like what
similarly,
is
you
account
can,
wrapper class?
yeah, I'll explain that moment. So you want to get data, right? And you want to get data in one variable, right? But we are returning account details. I'm returning contact details, opportunity details. I cannot add multiple return statements here, correct? So there can be only one return statement. So what I'm doing, I'm creating one wrapper class here. So this will store everything. It stores account details, it stores contact details and opportunity details, and I'm going to return an object of this account wrapper. So when I get this account wrapper object, it will have accounts, it will have contacts, it will have opportunities. Right.
Okay.
So basically, I'm wrapping multiple variables in one and returning. That's it. So you can see here, I created one object of account wrapper, and to this account wrapper, I'm saying account wrapper dot account is equal to this account. Then contacts is equal to the list of contacts, and opportunities is equal to list of opportunities. And the data is written in the same way, right? So when it returns the data, so this curly brace, the main curly brace represents this account wrapper, right? So this is the object of account wrapper. So within account wrapper, we have account variable, then we have contacts, then we have opportunities. Okay, is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, in our Apex class here, we have post request, right? So post request, what it is doing, it is taking data in the form of JSON, and you need to deserialize it. If you are using a standard REST API, the deserialization will happen automatically. So what is deserialization? So deserialization is basically converting string to object, right? And serialization is converting object to a JSON string, right? So basically, when we are making a request in Postman, like let's say a custom post, I want to send some data and I want to create account. If you look at it, I'm passing JSON, right? So this is nothing but a string. So when we pass this JSON string, we need to extract data, right? To extract data, we are going to deserialize it. So this is a string, we are deserializing it to an object. So when we deserialize, so there are multiple ways to deserialize. So one way is deserialize untyped. So when we say deserialize untyped, it gives us a map, okay? So there are other ways like deserialize to a particular type, all of those things. Here I'm saying untyped, so it is giving me map. I can deserialize it to map to account also. So you can look at those different deserialization methods. It's very easy. So once you deserialize, you can extract the data from your JSON, right? So this JSON is converted into map, and then you are extracting data and then inserting the data into account, right? So let's try and execute this. So go to header. We need to again update the bearer token because this is old one. So this is my access token, custom post. Something went wrong. Yeah, you can see the account is created and it returned an account ID, right? And with this detail, demo account. So this is working similar to the standard REST, but you can actually add more logic here, right? I'm just creating one account, but I can do many things. I can pass one JSON which has account details, contact details, opportunity details, and all of those will be created one shot. So that also I can do within this custom REST. Okay. So similarly, I can add a delete, I can add a patch method, so on in this custom REST. Any questions? Any doubts?
Sir, here also the same governor limit matters. No?
Yes, yes. Governor limits are same everywhere. So now let's see how to use this in our Next.js application. So here I have one button here, right? View details. So what happens when I click on view details? You can see it is displaying account details. It is displaying contacts. So there are 3 contacts, and it is displaying opportunity details. So there are 4 opportunities. So what is happening is it is making call to that custom REST class that we created, right? Custom endpoint. So let's see the code for this. So if I go to accounts.js, on every row, there is a button, right? So the button is view details. So when we click on view details, it's calling fetch account details. And what fetch account details is doing, it's calling API/account data. So in this case, it is calling this account data and ID.js because we are passing an ID. And then again, what we are doing here, first thing is we are going to generate access token. And then we are making call to this endpoint, right? Apex REST/account data and ID. So which is exactly like this, right? So this is the endpoint, base URL/services/Apex REST/account data. It is the URL mapping that we have given in our Apex class, right? So in our Apex class, this is the URL mapping. And then we are passing account ID. So that's what we are doing here. Services, Apex REST, account data, and ID. And we are again passing the token, right? Access token. We are also passing additionally, like we are passing the data in the form of JSON, so on, right? And finally, if it is request is successful, it will return the data, and the data is returned, and then we are displaying it, right? So what we are doing, once we get the data, we are storing the data in show account details. So show account detail method is called, and there is show account. Is storing the data in account details, and then we are displaying it in the form of pop-up. So this is where the pop-up is, right? So it will show the pop-up like this. Where is it? Yeah, just a second here. So whenever we click on view detail, so it is making call to that Apex REST, and then getting the account details, getting the contact details, getting the opportunity details, and displaying it. Right. So this is not much similar. This is not much different from the REST API, standard REST API, but we can add some complex logic within it, right? There are some limitations with standard REST API. So if your application needs some complex data manipulation and all, you can go with this custom REST. Okay, making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So anybody having any questions, any doubts? So I have actually uploaded this Next.js application in GitHub. So you can all clone it and then try it out, right? I have also added all the steps. So you just clone this project. Then you need to create a connected app in Salesforce, right? And get client ID and client secret. So once you get that, you create one environment variable file called .env.local. Within that, you will have to enter your client ID, client secret, username, password, and you leave this login URL as it is. And then you have to enable username password flow, right? Going to that OAuth and OpenID connect setting, just enable username password flow. And then you have to run this command, right? You need to install npm install, which will basically install all the dependencies. We are using a few dependencies here. I think let me show what are the dependencies. So go to package.json, you will see the dependencies, right? So I'm using axios.env, React, so on. So these are the dependencies that will get installed, right? And then once you install the dependency, you can just say run dev, npm run dev. So you need to make sure that Node.js is installed first because this is a Node.js app. So then npm run dev, and it will run on localhost. And then you say /accounts to call that accounts page, which will call this page, right? And if you want to use that Apex REST, so I have also uploaded code here. So this is the code, the Apex class that I created. So you can just copy paste this in your Salesforce org, right? Try it out. It's a good way of learning. Try both, right? You need to try in Postman and then try building this application, right? Once you get it to work, you can actually add more functionality to it. You can try and build any other application that you want to build. Okay.
So the same goes with other applications, UI framework like React also you can do it.
Yeah, you can do it with React also. This is almost like a React application. Next.js is a React framework only. But it works with anything. It works with AngularJS. It works with Python, anything. Okay, I'll share this GitHub URL with you. Just try it out. Okay, cool. I think that's it